D-Mace, Vengen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason and Adam Vengen here in Nashville. Willie Donick live from Denver, where the Predators will play tomorrow night against the Colorado Avalanche. Speaking of the Predators, here's something I haven't been able to say in a few weeks. Predators win!
Oh.
The Predators win last night, an impressive 4-1 win against the Dallas Stars to snap their 8-game winless skid. Ryan O'Reilly in his return to the lineup, 3 points, 2 goals, and an assist. Jonathan Marchessault, 2 assists. Justus Annunen, another strong start, his second for the Predators, 35 saves on 36 shots.
Okay.
So, look, considering what the Predators were facing, Willie, no Roman Josi last night, other injuries to the blue line. If my rough math is correct, 4 of the Predators' 6 defensemen last night started the season in the American League. There was a lot going wrong, as we know. The Stars are a good team, but the Predators, to their credit, they also, by the way, had 2 goals removed by challenges, if I'm not mistaken. So it could have been a bigger win, but a 4-1 win for the Predators, an impressive win. And of course, we all hope that this is the springboard to something else. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But all things considered, the situation the Predators were in, an incredibly impressive performance last night in Dallas.
Yes, and now the question becomes, now what? What do you do off of this? It was a breakthrough. This was the kind of performance you thought would have happened by now a few times, and it is maddening. We were doing the numbers, and Adam, you helped me compile some of the things with their low shooting percentage, their knack for hitting posts, and sure enough, in the first minute or two of the game, they hit another post. They had a goal waved off. They've had, by my count, 3 goals waved off now for offsides, and that's the player's fault. That's the team's fault. But we're talking about centimeters or, maybe a foot between it. That has really nothing to do with how the goal ends up getting scored, but it is part of the game. But they've had 3. I don't know where they rank there. They had 1 waved off for goaltender interference. They've had a couple goals waved off for being kicked in. Like, it just seems like every time they push forward and look like they're going to break through, it's a tease and it stops. Like, oh, more bad fortune, something like that. But last night, after the first period, where like, here's another period where they played really well, and the score is 0-0, they finally busted out in the second period. That was an inspiring performance by Ryan O'Reilly for sure. And the coaches all said it wasn't just what he did on the ice. When he came back, and you could see him pushing, when they were at their lowest point on Tuesday, he wasn't able to play against Calgary, but he skated after their morning skate. It was an inspiring skate. Like the Zamboni was coming on the ice. The time was up, and he still was trying to get the last few conditioning sprints in there. And then he spoke to the team beforehand. So he hasn't given up on the season. So hopefully that rubs off. There were a lot of good signs last night. It's a good place to start, and now let's see what they can do with it.
The thing that I found interesting, or one of the most encouraging things that I saw, and it probably went unnoticed by a lot of people, Tommy Novak goal. You saw Tommy Novak. If it wasn't because of his hustle to tip the puck to his players when Dallas guy was there and they were getting ready to, fight over the puck, and he gave it that last ditch effort to tip it away and tip it to his guy. And not only did he do that, he said the job's not done. Then he circled back around and got in that mucky area. And I think it was O'Reilly that found him, or was it Marchessault that found him for the goal for Novak?
Marchessault.
Yeah, Marchessault found him for the goal. That's encouraging to see. And I want that type of play to continue moving forward, because those are the little things in the big scheme of things you don't realize if you're just looking at it, from a novice level, as I am. But when you see things like that you haven't seen much all season, and you see things like that against the team that they played against when their backs was against the wall, meaning the Nashville Predators, when you see that extra effort, that tends to go a long way, and it caused the ripple effect, at least with in that particular play where Novak tips it to his guy, Marchessault, then turns right back around and he heads into that mucky area and he ends up scoring a goal. So that was encouraging. I want to see that type of play continue. They just looked a lot faster. They looked rested for some reason. They just looked like the team that we hoped to see, some point at the beginning of the season. We haven't seen that team consistently. So hopefully this game can be sort of a sort of a boost for them. Now, what they do with it, I don't know, but hopefully it's a boost for them to show, hey, listen, if we play like this consistently, just give the effort, something's going to break for us.
As we know, and you know this as well, Derek, being a professional athlete, the exuberance, the youthful exuberance can certainly play a role in propping a team up. As I mentioned, with all of the injuries on the blue line, defensive unit, as I said, with, if I'm not mistaken, 4 D-men who were in the American Hockey League on opening night. And against a team like the Dallas Stars that has a ton of firepower, I thought those inexperienced defensemen, relatively speaking, those inexperienced defensemen played really well. Adam Wilsby played more than 20 minutes last night. Kevin Gravel played 20 minutes exactly last night. Wilsby was a +4. Gravel was a +3. Nick Blankenberg played nearly 20 minutes last night. Brady Shea led the way with more than 22 minutes, but it was balanced. And I thought that was incredibly impressive, considering the team they were going up against. But as you said, Derek and Willie, I know you will concur. The one thing that has eluded this Predators team throughout this season, they haven't won very many games. But when they have, they've had a hard time stringing together good performances. Last time they won a game, they won against the Winnipeg Jets at home, the best team in the league at the time. They followed that game up with arguably their worst performance of the season on the road against the New Jersey Devils. So tomorrow, they're on the road against the Colorado Avalanche, a team with plenty of firepower, of course, with Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen and Cale Makar. They're getting healthier. So the team that the Predators saw a few weeks ago that was playing a lot of relative unknowns, that team, Valeri Nichushkin is back, and Arturi Lehkonen is back. They're getting healthier. They're getting the veteran players back. So I think Predators fans are certainly encouraged by the performance yesterday, but I think it's sort of we'll believe it when we see it. And if they can continue this tomorrow against Colorado, maybe we can start talking about the turning of the corner, so to speak.
Yeah, they've got a long way to go. It's a big corner that they've got to turn because of how far back they are. But you hit on it, Adam. It's now taking this game that they played, and let me say this. I think you have to say that I think they ambushed the Stars. I think the Stars looked at, hey, here comes a team that hadn't won in a while. Oh, Roman Yossi's not playing. Oh, Juuse Saros isn't playing. They looked at the D-core and they're like, oh, man, we got this. We're going to light these guys up. Dallas hadn't lost. They'd only lost one game in that building all night, all season. 11-1 in games played in American Airlines Center. Their goalie was 10-0 at home. And I think they came out thinking we're just going to walk over these guys, and they got ambushed. And that's a great thing for the Predators. But I think they have to take that game where they flat out beat them. They flat out beat the Stars. And they've not bottled that up, and now they've got to do it every night. A couple of things that you hit on. I do think Adam Wilsby he's looking more and more like not just the guy they're bringing up from Milwaukee. He looks like he is a keeper and a real deal. He is really good. He had his first goal wiped away, but he's doing a lot of NHL defenseman stuff that's going to stick and have him for a long time. That's a good sign. I think Mark Delgado is making some strides. The other two guys, Blankenberg and Gravel, are your classic call-ups, right? Veteran guys that are plugging holes until the other guys get back. But I'm really encouraged about Wilsby and D-Mace. I think you're right to bring up Novak. That's such a critical guy. And he looks like the best version of Tommy Novak the last two games. And he was invisible. Let's be honest. He wasn't giving them anything for well over a month while they were struggling. They've got to have him playing well. But last night is what they stumbled on almost with O'Reilly out is they put Stamkos, Marchessault, and Forsberg, all the drama of Marchessault. Now you've got Stamkos, Marchessault, and Forsberg. That's a line. You bring in Ryan O'Reilly out of missing a couple of games. You put him with Nyquist. You throw Zach LaRue, who got moved up in there. Now you've got a second line. Then you throw Novak's line in there, and that is supposed to be what it looked like from the start.
Yeah.
3 lines that all are threats, and then a scrappy identity fourth line with Michael McCarron and Colton Sissons and those guys. That is how it's supposed to look, and that's how they won the game last night. Now, do they have something there? I don't know. Right? There's still some things you look around and go, Stamkos still's got to find a way to get some shots, right? He's getting more and more comfortable knowing what it's like playing center every night for the first time in a while. But can he get it there? These are all big questions, but you had the framework of something. We're like, okay, do they have something here? But every time we said that earlier this year, it hasn't gone anywhere, right? But what do they have now?
Well, think about this, and maybe I have the timeline wrong, maybe off a couple of days. Marchessault says what he says, and I'm just talking about him as a player. Marchessault says what he says.
That was about a week and a half ago.
Yeah, and then he goes out and he scores 2 goals.
He scored 2 goals,
and then he comes back and he assists on 2 goals.
He could have had more. To be honest,
that assist, I think it might have been a first goal.
Yeah, he assisted
to
on
O'Reilly.
Each of the first 2
That pass, that was damn near a full court pass that he gave to O'Reilly, and O'Reilly did the rest. That's him now. I think that's him now understanding whatever Barry said to him after what he said and what Bruno said to him after what he said. He took it to heart, and now it seems like he's stepping up and playing the way that we anticipated and expected him to play when the Predators signed him.
We have a couple of texts.
It's a good question.
We've got a couple
question about that.
We've got a couple of texts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chip from Mount Juliet says the players looked hungry, especially the defensemen. Start sitting people that show no fire, regardless of name or salary. Another texter says, I hope Coach Brunette stays with this lineup for a bit. There was a lot of fire in the bellies of the guys on the ice last night. O'Reilly looked really good. So the Predators will hope to take this with them. They're already in Colorado, but they will hope to take it on the ice tomorrow in Denver when they face the Colorado Avalanche. Derek, there was one thing that happened in the Thursday night football game last night between the Niners and the Rams that you wanted to discuss. Devondre Campbell, veteran linebacker, refused to enter the game. And afterwards, Kyle Shanahan, coach of the 49ers, said, frankly, he didn't want to play. He didn't want to go in. And if I'm not mistaken, Derek, this is the second time I feel like in the past few weeks we've seen this. Wasn't there a receiver on the Ravens?
Deontay Johnson said he didn't want to go in the game toward the end of the game.
So what's going on?
I don't think it's a problem. I really don't think it's a problem. I think these are isolated incidents. And just because you have an isolated incident doesn't mean now this has become a problem. You got, over 1,500 players. And when 2 individuals choose to do that, that doesn't consist as a problem, nor is it a trend. I think it's, in both of the cases, I just think, they allowed their emotions to get the better of them. And listen, sometimes it happened. And, you never want to define, especially if you've been in a locker room with an individual for a while, you never want to define a person by his worst moments. And, should he have walked out in a fashion that he did? No, he shouldn't have done that. At least I don't think. But let's not, tear him down or whatnot. I heard Ryan Clark this morning, who I enjoy listening to because I believe he has some really insightful takes when he does talk. saying that, he basically should be excommunicated from the NFL, period. Now whether teams choose to do that or not, that's up to them. But as a former player, I'm not gonna, because I'm not in that situation. I don't know what went on. I'm not gonna say this guy should be excommunicated from the league, period, like banned or blackball. What I would say is, listen, he has to understand that his actions the consequences of his actions may not have been thought out. His actions, I don't think he thought about what he's doing and what the ramifications could actually be. And I'm sure he probably, after the game, he kind of got away from it for a second. He probably like, damn, I shouldn't have done that.
What did I do?
Exactly. Like, what did I just do? Because, it's one thing, because truth be told here, one of the things that I think should have happened, and maybe it did, but we just didn't get a glimpse of it, because it has happened to me. Full transparency when it comes to this. That's why I say, don't judge a guy by his lowest moments. Okay. If you've been with the guy, you know who he is and what he's about. If he has one of those moments, don't judge him completely like, oh, you're just a bad person based upon his lowest moments. There was a game I played when we were in Baltimore, and the game wasn't going well. And I felt like I wanted to be, I could help, but it seemed like, just for whatever that game, they were not looking to me at all, not one bit. And it went on and on. And right before half, I just got upset. And I said, I'm done. And this was right before half, so I probably strategically did it, so I can just go in the locker room early. But I left the sideline. Now, mind you, Baltimore's a little bit different. They're entering their locker room is right behind their sideline. So if I go in the locker room, it's not like anybody would notice. If they were on the other side of the field, they wouldn't notice. Only people that would notice is the people on our sideline, because the way our entry into our locker room is, it's right behind our bench. So the game wasn't going well, and I'm just frustrated. And it might have been a minute or so left, and we didn't have the ball. And I'm like, damn this. So I'm going in the locker room. I'm done. I need to regroup. I'm going in the locker room. I'm pissed. Ed Reed walked over there and he grabbed me as I was walking down those stairs. Nobody else would have saw this. Ed Reed grabbed me and said, dude, don't do this. We need you. I know you're upset, but we need you, D. Come back out. I said, okay. I gathered myself really quick. Okay, came back out, went back at halftime, came back out in the game, and I was able to be productive. Why didn't somebody grab him? Why didn't one of those leaders grab him? That's my biggest thing. If y'all are a team, if y'all are a family, when something's going on within the family and somebody's getting ready, they're mad and all this, and they get ready to walk out, and you really, what do? You grab them. Like, whoa, let's talk about this. Let's get everybody together and talk about this. Don't just run out the house, because it's not like the problem is going anywhere. Let's talk about this. If you got a problem with that person, let all of us talk about, because we're a family. Why didn't one of those leaders, why didn't they grab him? Because the coach is not going to do it, and you don't expect him to do it because he has a lot to worry about. Why didn't one of those leaders grab him like, dude, where you going? We need you out here. You can't do this. Now, had he made the decision to continue to go in after you did that, then okay, all bets are off. You gotta live with the decision that you made. But as a player and a leader on that team, somebody should have known. Like, they're hearing all this stuff and they see him. Oh, whoa, dude, come back. Come back. What you doing, man? We need you. Put your emotions to the side. It's all about you to the side for right now. It's about us. Why didn't somebody do that? And now everyone wants to talk amongst his team like, oh, he shouldn't have did that. He's a bad. No, why didn't you that's when a leader stands up. That's when a leader steps up. In situations like that, that's why Ed Reed stepped up the way he did. And there were other guys, had they saw me, I know there were other guys that would have did the same thing, because I would have did that to them. Like, dude, you can't go nowhere. We need you. So why didn't anybody that's the question nobody's asking. Why didn't anybody on the San Francisco 49ers grab him and like, dude, where you going? That's their responsibility.
It's a good point. It's a good point, D-Mace. I think the difference to me is you were a guy that had been on the team. It seems like a heat of the moment thing. Campbell, I guess he hadn't played. Then they asked him to go in, and he didn't go
Yeah.
in. Like, it wasn't a heat of the moment thing. Like,
But it's
and the
still
way
like
that
your
the team,
emotions is going on. You're still trying to figure out, like, why am I not in the game? I have been a starter, since the beginning of the season. I know Greenlaw comes back and he's
right,
primarily their starting middle backer, but he got hurt in his, in the Super Bowl run. So that put him out, the NFC Championship game, but that put him out. Or it's a Super Bowl, excuse me. But still, they should be able to tell that guy, like, listen, dude, no matter what, you got to stay in the game. So to me, it was a missed opportunity. It was a missed opportunity for DeAndre, and it was a missed opportunity for those leaders on the 49ers to say, yo, dude, you ain't going nowhere. We'll deal with this later, but you are not, because what it looks like now, regardless of what anybody else said, it looks like a locker room that is starting to fracture because of the losses.
615-737-1025. You can call us. You can text us on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, Titans and Bengals this weekend. Another opportunity for Will Levis to show his worth to the Titans organization. But here's what one NFL analyst has to say about what the Titans could or should do in the offseason. We'll get to that next. But before we do, it's bowl season, and the Game Nashville Sports Network is your home for college football bowl games and the college football playoff, presented by Twin Peaks Empowerment Tractor and Equipment. Tomorrow, tune in for the Cricket Celebration Bowl as Jackson State faces South Carolina State on 102.5, 106.3. The game kickoff is at 11 o'clock. For a list of games carried on the Game Nashville Sports Network, visit thegamenashville.com/bowl games. Join Big Joe Dubin, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason downtown at JBJ's Nashville this Sunday for the pregame show from 9:30 to 11:30. They will break down the Titans' Week 15 matchup against the Bengals and give you the latest updates before the game. The pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sun Deck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan here with you, Titans and Bengals, as I just said, this weekend here at Nissan Stadium. Another opportunity for Will Levis after a disappointing performance. The whole team had a disappointing performance, but they scored 6 points against the worst defense in the league last season. The Cincinnati Bengals defense isn't that much better. They've allowed 40 total touchdowns this season. There are only two teams in the league that have allowed more, the Carolina Panthers and the Dallas Cowboys. They allow more than 350 yards per game. So although the Bengals, we know what they can do on the offensive side of the ball, their defense has not been stout this season. Bill Barnwell earlier this week wrote a story looking at some of the teams that could make offseason moves involving their quarterbacks. Of course, the Tennessee Titans on that list, a lot of question marks surrounding Will Levis. And what I like about Bill Barnwell is he comes prepared with the stats. And Willie, you were talking about Will Levis's QBR ratings and that when Deshaun Watson is no longer considered a qualified quarterback, Will Levis will be at the bottom of the league in that category. And according to Barnwell, Levis's 34.7 total QBR ranks 33rd ahead of only Watson. He's also 33rd in EPA, expected points added per dropback, and 32nd in first down rate ahead of only Watson and Anthony Richardson. So we all know the decision the Titans have to make when it comes to the quarterback. If they decide to keep him, as Willie, you have noted many times, the salary is not restrictive. It won't cost the Titans a lot to keep him. But Bill Barnwell suspects that the Titans quarterback next season will be a player who is not on the current roster. So the question for all of us is, what can Will Levis do to make sure that doesn't happen starting this weekend against a Bengals defense that could be ripe for the picking?
Well, I would start it with this. I read Barnwell's take. There were a couple things on there that I really hadn't thought of, or I wasn't aware of. Because if you look at the numbers, I've been saying it. You can cross-check those numbers with just about any analytic site. Will Levis, other than Deshaun Watson, is at the bottom of the barrel in a lot of the main, most important overall evaluations of a quarterback. And we've been saying this. Even when he had the uptick, he had a long way to go to get to average. And I think that's what Will Levis has to prove between now and the end of the year, is that he's got a chance to be average next year. And the advantage of having average quarterback play with a very cheap quarterback is that you can load up the roster with other stuff. But I don't know if they can get there next year. It's still a little bit of a tall order. But one thing that Barnwell pointed out was that he does have his moments. I think that passes the eye test, right? He throws some passes where you're like, wow. And there was a stat in there, and I forget the specifics of what it said, but it had to do with the number of times he hits the receiver in stride down the field.
Yes, the second-year pro has an extremely strong arm and makes some impressive passes. 54.8% of his attempts are considered precise throws that hit the receiver in stride near the torso, the 12th best rate in football.
Because, D-Mace, here's where you have to be fair, because there's also in this article the discussion of Sam Darnold, who's coming off a 5-touchdown pass performance. But what Barnwell points out is he's got a lot of help around him. He's got a tremendous, generational kind of receiver in Justin Jefferson. He's got some other good parts. Everything's going well for the Vikings. He's got the support. And it's clear Will Levis doesn't have a lot of support, right? To be fair, he's not elevating his guys, but the players around him aren't even what they hoped he would be. And it got me thinking, too, of, how would we evaluate how much improvement we've seen from the players around him? Like, for example, the 2 first-round picks on the left side of the offensive line. Are they getting better? I'm not as good an evaluator as I need to be. I would love to hear what the trained eye really sees with the little things. Are those guys going to get there? Is Ridley getting there? His numbers aren't great, right? We know he's still coming from a deficit because he was so, 2 years ago. But is he getting there? Is Ridley getting there? His numbers aren't great, right? We know he's still coming from a deficit because he was so, 2 years ago. But is he getting there? Is Ridley getting there? His numbers aren't great, right? We know he's still coming from a deficit because he was so unproductive at the beginning of the year. He's shown flashes, but overall, he's not grading out real well in the big metrics you're looking for a number one receiver. So it's not like Levis is surrounded by this great talent. We know that. So these are the questions I have going forward to try to decide some big decisions the Titans will have to make at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, because there's not a true consensus on whether, Will Levis deserves another year or not. My thing is, you still got him under contract. So whether you believe he deserves another year or not, bringing him back isn't going to hurt your team, because you're already accounted, for that spot in that dollar amount on your team. At worst, he can be a backup on your team, a guy that knows the offense, a guy that I think operates better when he's sort of like short spurts, where he doesn't have to be the starter for 9-10 games. If he's a 3-game starter, I think he can do considerably well with just that 3 starts, and then somebody else comes in. So whether he proves, if he proves that he's not the quarterback, you still keep him on a roster, but you do bring in someone else. But some of these metrics, I can understand, and him not having a talent, say, of a Sam Darnold. But there are still things within, the game that you see, if you're watching it closely, that he's probably isn't where he needs to be at this juncture of his career, nor at this juncture of a season. He's still doing those little things that makes you think like, man, will he ever get it? Will he ever be able to read it the way he needs to read it in order for us to progress as a team the way we need to from an offensive standpoint? Yes, we see he's not throwing any interceptions. He's not that egregious. He's not doing those sort of boneheaded things. But is he doing enough to warrant to say, okay, we're going to give this another run again next year? I'm not sure if that's the case.
I think it's notable, Adam, that Barnwell basically says that if you look at the number, I don't think you can emphasize enough that other than Deshaun Watson, he grades the lowest of any qualified starting quarterback. We're now around that 20 start thing, right? He's now closer to what he's going to be. And the longer that goes, the less chance it is that there's going to be this magical breakthrough where he jumps to another level, even with better talent around him. So I think it's notable that Barnwell basically says the quarterback for next year is not on the roster, knowing how cheap Will Levis is in terms of what he makes.
I would be curious to see where he ranks in those categories since he returned from injury. And Barnwell could have certainly has access to numbers that we don't have access to, but I would love to know where he ranks in those same categories among qualified quarterbacks since he returned from injury. My guess is it's probably not sparkling, but it's probably not worst in the league. I would be really interested to see where he ranks over the past 4 or 5 weeks. But another thing that Barnwell points out in the story is that Levis has an 11.8% sack rate. Tennessee has just scored 2 touchdowns on 31 drives in which he has taken a sack this season. The only offense with more 2+ sack drives is the Bears, who, as Barnwell notes, have fired their coach and offensive coordinator this season. So not good company there.
Right. And I think that's a good point. It doesn't get into red zone efficiency. There are just so many things that I still don't think, since the injury, have gotten way better. They've gotten better, but we've always tried to put this in perspective on the show. You're not ready to throw a party and say he's arrived, because you're just going from basically failing grades to passable grades, right? And that's not even, passable doesn't even mean you're like a C or C+. If you're, the minimum standard for a guy that you're going to hand the reins to has got to be at least a C+ level to feel like you have a chance. And again, he has a built-in advantage in that he takes up so little of the salary cap. So the bar's not that high at this point. That's why I still want to know. I'm trying to be fair. Like how has Latham graded? We all have this recency of him getting blown by and almost getting Levis killed on the last play. That's in there, but play in and play out. What's happening with Latham, who's a young guy who they desperately need to continue to get better and become an anchor over there? Skoronski, we know his struggles last year. We know his struggles at the beginning of this year. Is he starting to come around a little bit? What do they have there? What does Ridley look like next year? Do they need to use the first-round pick for a wide receiver on the other side? We know Nick Westbrook-Akine has had a really efficient year. He's been a bright spot, but what is he really? What is he on a winning team? These are all questions that they have to answer, as well as how much money do we budget for the quarterback going forward?
Trey is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Trey, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, how y'all doing today?
Good,
Doing
thanks.
good.
Hey, I wanted to ask y'all, I want y'all to rank Will Levis's skill set. I've been arguing for a year and a half about this man's skill set. He is 25 years old, and he's trying to learn basic things out there on the field. And I just want y'all to just give me a grade, because I don't see it. I don't know. Do y'all think he can be a number one quarterback? And I love y'all. Y'all have a good day, and thank you.
Thank you, Trey.
Thank you,
Before
Trey.
we answer that question, let's go to break. Let's think about it, and we'll come back and we'll answer that question on the other side. 615-737-1025. Nashville's best deal this week is 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. 312 Pizza Company serves the best pizza in town, as well as Chicago-style eats like Chicago dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and more. Check them out at 371 Monroe Street in Germantown, or order takeout online at 312pizzaco.com. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get half off a $30 gift card to 312 Pizza Company while supplies last.
Zen Sports just picked the grand prize winner for the November Big Game Sweepstakes. Don't worry, people. If you didn't win in November, you know what? You got an opportunity to win in December, but for a different game. December is all about the Big Game Sweepstakes College Edition. This time, instead of going to the big game for the pros, they're giving you a chance to go to the very first big game in the new college football tournament with a grand prize of $10,000 cash. And check this out, 2 tickets to the biggest college football game of 2025. Yes, the one right down the street in Atlanta. And the ability to earn entries on every bet you place in December. It doesn't get much better than this. If you don't win the grand prize, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't get too sad, okay? Because you'll also have a shot to win one of 10 small prizes, which grants you $1,000 toward any college football game in 2025. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to zensports.com/sweepstakes for a full list of rules and earn $100 no danger wager on your first bet. That's Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
1025 The Game and Cromwell Media have teamed up with the Nashville Predators for Coats for Kids, benefiting the Boys and Girls Club of Middle Tennessee. Starting Monday, you can donate new or slightly used coats at the Game Studio and at the Fort Ice Centers in Antioch, Bellevue, and Clarksville. Also on Friday, December 20th, the Game will be at the Fort Ice Center in Bellevue from 9 to 6, taking donations, giving away swag, and tickets to an upcoming Preds game. Coat donations will also be accepted at the Preds home game at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, December 21st. For more information, visit thegamenashville.com/coats. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. So before the break, Trey called in and wanted us to rank Will Levis's skills and whether we believe he has the necessary skills to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. So to me, and gentlemen, I think you might agree, I think Will Levis's biggest skill is his arm talent, his arm strength, his ability to throw the ball down the field. That to me is the clearest skill that he has. Would you all agree?
Yeah. His ability to get the ball, push the ball down the field. You know, I've said this before about Will. He can throw this thing through a hurricane. That's not the problem. We know how strong his arm is. It's just the other little things, the intangibles, that you know, allows your career to be extended and allow you to play you know, for a very long time in this league, because some of those things you just don't lose. He's going to lose the strength in his arm. It's the other things that you worry about, the decision making, the processing. Is he seeing the field correctly? Those are things, you know, no matter what, you know, once you get yourself entrenched to this, that's the way you're always going to read it. Now, you may read it slow at times, but you know what's exactly going on from a defensive standpoint. You know what they're trying to do, and you know, just about where your open guys are. Will you ever? Sometimes you may never get to them, but you process the field a certain way, and I don't think that ever goes away. So when you talk about, you know, the skill set, yes, the strong arm, yeah, but you can't rely on your strong arm forever. And you can't rely on your strong arm in every situation. So yes, you're right about that skill set, but there are other things that he's not doing from a quarterback standpoint that you're concerned about. So, you know, I'm not a quarterback guru. I'm sure there are a lot of other things, you know, guys that have been watching quarterbacks intently. They know what to look for. So they may be able to, you know, give a better assessment of, well, where Will Levis is from a skill set standpoint. But the few things that I've seen doesn't, you know, give me any sort of like excitement for the next season. If you just want to say a strong arm, okay, you can say a strong arm, but beside that, I need to be excited about my quarterback moving forward. If I'm an owner, and I'm not sure after what she's seen this year, she's excited as she was coming into this season. We saw the excitement for her. She even said it. We got an exciting young quarterback. I wonder if she would say that this all season and heading into next season, that we still have a young, exciting quarterback. If you tell your fan base like you got a, you know, young, exciting quarterback, ain't nobody showing up in that building.
Willie, to your point,
it's a tough sell.
Sorry, Derek, to Derek's point, Willie, you know, the arm talent certainly is there, but there are question marks about everything else. His presence in the pocket. We see that with the number of sacks he takes. We just read the numbers from Bill Barnwell. His decision making. We certainly saw that at the beginning of the season. It's suspect at best. His timing and accuracy. I mean, I believe his completion percentage is up this season, but I think the number of throws that he's throwing deep have come down. So he's taking quote unquote easier throws. That has helped lift his completion percentage. So I think outside of, yes, we know he can chuck the ball down the field. I think everything else has a big fat question mark on it.
Absolutely. I think we know that. It's like a Major League Baseball pitcher that has a great fastball, but doesn't have the feel for how to use it and have the other pitches to complement it, right? That's what I see with Levis. He's got the he's got the ability to throw some passes. And you mentioned that one stat by Barnwell, and that absolutely resonates. He can throw some passes that are that a lot of quarterbacks are not capable of throwing, but he doesn't have the other stuff to complement it and really bring it out. The other thing that I think is a big grade that I think I cannot give him anything close to a high mark is when he has been in the key clutch moments, at least this year. He did have a couple moments last year, but I have not seen him elevate his game in the big moments. Last week was a great example where Brian Callahan said you got 3 or 4 critical plays where if they make the play, then the game can turn out differently. And it's not all on him, right? We always talk about the adage that's true every time, that the quarterback takes too much of the blame and he gets too much of the credit. So, yeah, Westbrook-Akine could have made a great catch, and we're talking about a successful week. But I do think the grades of I was really disappointed that building off of the small gains he had, he's come back to where the same questions are lingering after the Washington game and particularly the Jacksonville game.
Mike is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Mike, thank you for waiting. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. So sorry to do a little swerve on here, but specifically, Derek, we watched Jamar Chase absolutely torch the Cowboys defense the entire game. I was actually playing against Jamar Chase with a 43-point lead in fantasy, and I had to swap over to the broadcast to make that loss sting less. So having Lisa Simpson score a touchdown on you in the last, minute of the game just, stung for my playoff chances. But are we in for the exact same thing this Sunday? Like, I don't know if we have a way to stop Jamar Chase, if there's even a way to do it. I was watching the Cowboys, and I haven't had a chance to sit and watch a Cowboys game, but their defense looked about as bad as some of the worst defenses in the league. I know they have some bigger name corners, but I just don't know if any of our corners can hang with Chase. So what are we going to have to do, because the Cowboys didn't have it?
Can I answer that question before Derek does?
Go ahead.
Pray.
This is a game you got to score.
Thanks for calling, Mike.
To win. To tie the two questions together, right? You're not going to stop Jamar Chase.
Well,
they're gonna score, so you've got to score with them to beat the Bengals.
Well, I think one thing is because this Cincinnati Bengals defense is horrid. You got to run the football. It's not about because this is the same problem you run into, when you're trying to outscore Patrick Mahomes. You're not going to outscore Patrick Mahomes more times than not. You're not going to outscore Josh Allen more times than not, or even Lamar Jackson for that matter. But what you do is when you're playing against guys like that, or if they're playing against each other, you got to run the football. You got to slow the game up. You got to force Joe Burrow to sit on the bench as much as he is on the field. Football games are about possession. And typically you get 2 to 3, maybe 2 possessions per quarter. If things are going great, you may get 3. But typically you get 2 per quarter.
But what do you have to do with that there?
So you got to extend
cash
it.
In.
Yeah, you got to cash in
at the end of drive,
and you got to extend.
They're not good at that.
But even because you got to understand this. If Joe Burrow is on the bench, it's going to take him a while to get going, get that that flow going, and that he needs with his receivers for the game. If you don't allow them to get into a flow, if they're sitting on the bench, our thing when we play Tom Brady or Peyton Manning is keeping them on the bench. How do we keep them on the bench? Because trying to stop them, I don't care what type of defense you have, it's going to be very, very difficult. So how do you lessen the opportunities that they have? Yeah, one, you got to score. But if you score in 2 minutes, they ain't going to do nothing but come back and score in 1 minute and 50 seconds. And now it's this back and forth. You don't want, because the minute you mess up, they got you. The minute you don't score, minute you go 3 and out, they got you. So what you do is you stay on the field long enough. And with the Titans, the way they have been running the football, when they have committed to the run, they can do it. And I look at it from this standpoint. Listen, Jamar Chase is going to get his. He's going to do what he needs to do. You're not going to stop him. You can't contain it and make it a little bit difficult for Joe Burrow to get him the ball. But then you got to worry about T. Higgins. So this is not just a Jamar Chase thing. If you put all your energy at stopping Jamar Chase, T. Higgins has shown you that he can be the number one if he needs to be the number one. So you have to pick your moments where you make it very difficult for Burrow to get the ball to Jamar Chase. You got to put pressure on Joe Burrow to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. Don't let him sit back there and tap the football and feel a sense of relaxation back there. He's going to pick you apart if you do that. You got to bring pressure, but you got to keep it even. But you got to know when 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. Okay, we got to make sure if they're going to get it, Jamar Chase ain't the guy that's going to get it, and we're going to try to make it just as hard to get it to T. Higgins. So to me, you got to run the football. That's the way you beat Cincinnati. Run the football, keep the football, and then make the plays when they're there to be made. Because you're not gonna go tit for tat with teams like that.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your calls and texts on Will Levis and the Titans, who are preparing to take on the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday at Nissan Stadium. Coming up next, with all of this talk about what the Titans could do at quarterback next season, there is one quarterback who is potentially available this offseason that I want the Titans to stay away from. And I'll explain why coming up next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Fingan here with you. Kevin is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kevin, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I wanted to talk about the analysis of Levis. Seems like I hear a lot of contradiction, especially from Jared, but saying, everybody thinks we have the worst offensive line in history. And our receivers, they don't seem to get any separation. And when they do, they drop the ball. But everything falls on Levis. And I don't understand how it can all be on him. I mean, early in the year, he made some bonehead decisions and bad passes and other things. But now he seems like he's settling in. He's getting where the game is coming to him a little bit better, makes some better decisions. But yet, I mean, everybody, even national radio, but especially 102.5 says we have the worst O-line ever. But I don't think that any quarterback that you bring in, especially the ones that are going on free agent, we will see the worst of them if they were to start with our existing offensive line. And I wanted to see what you thought about that.
Thanks for the call, Kevin.
Okay, let's start with the worst O-line ever. I'm not here to compare them to, the early 90s Cowboys or the old Hogs or anything. But I think the line is better than it was last year. I think the right tackle has been, a huge disappointment. But I think they've made some modest gains, right? They're not a good offensive line at all, but they're not the worst line ever. I think the sack rate, and Barnwell points this out in the article that we've referenced today, the sack rate is a lot on Levis. It is. I hate to say it. He's not getting a lot of help, but I do think the offensive line has taken some steps forward in some areas.
Yeah, they've listen. That right side is a island in itself. That's by itself. I don't know.
And do we think Radens at guard has been a decent success story?
Yeah, he's been better than what I expected. He hasn't been. If they had a better right tackle, I think you wouldn't notice Dylan Radens, and that's what we want. We don't want to notice our offensive linemen. We just want them to do their job and go about their business. So I think if you had a better situation at right tackle, it would be better for Dylan Radens. Their offensive line is not good. They can be better. Are they what they were last year? No, they're not. But are they where they need to be? No, they're not. But this is what I think the caller has to understand. And this is why, and Willie said it earlier, listen, the nature of the position is sometimes you're going to get too much praise for the job you did, and sometimes you're going to get too much of the blame for the job that wasn't done. But I think what people got to understand is this. We talked last week about Will Levis being last game was the least amount of times he was pressured. And it still didn't lead to him playing winning football. He still had bad throws. He still had missed throws. He still didn't read the field properly the way he should have read it. So you can't, put that on the offensive line. When the offensive line, do their job within the play that was designed at that particular juncture of the game, if the offensive line is doing their job for that moment, Will Levis needs to be doing his job too. There has to be a point where this young quarterback in Will Levis, he has to take advantage of the opportunities when they're there all the time. And he hasn't done that. He hasn't done it consistently. So when the offensive line is giving you an opportunity to throw the football and you're still not finding the open guy, then that's a you problem. That's on Will Levis. That's not on the offensive line. That's why I said it's been too much inconsistent play with Will Levis when the offensive line was good and when it was bad. It's just been inconsistent on his part. The quarterback is supposed to uplift everything. They are. Whether you believe it or not, the quarterback is supposed to uplift everyone. That's why they get paid the most. And when it doesn't happen on any level, that's where you got to decide, is he our guy or isn't he? Because it's not always going to be perfect. I need a quarterback that when it's not perfect, he find the perfection in it somehow, some way, and he makes a play within that. And Will Levis hasn't been able to do that consistently.
One texter says,
Can I introduce one other element to this that I don't think we've discussed as much as we probably should, and that is the running game. That last year, just the presence of Derrick Henry, right, changes the defense, as we talked about, year in and year out. And now, even though Tony Pollard is a good, steady pro, nobody is game planning for the Titans running game. And I don't think it's been as productive as they hoped it would be. You know, it's not like Pollard has been a disaster. He's a hard worker, but if you look at key efficiency stats, right, and I'm looking at FTN Fantasy right now, Pollard grades very low. And we know Tajay Spears has had a big, big disappointment in terms of staying healthy. And when he's been on the field, he's done virtually nothing. I've been really disappointed that Spears hasn't turned into something else. I was very hopeful for him. And that hasn't helped Will Levis, you know, in any way, shape, or form either, other than, you know, a decent game here or there from Pollard, but Pollard is nowhere close to Derrick Henry, right? And it's a different type of thing. It's a different system that they're running. But I think that's part of it. I think they were hoping to have more support from the running game and the running backs as receivers, and it really hasn't happened.
One texter says that he wouldn't play Madden with the Titans offensive line. Well,
well, I mean, I guess you don't play with the Titans then.
No.
When you're playing Madden, if that's the case.
Unless you're in franchise mode.
When I used to play back in the day, or Tecmo Bowl, and because I wasn't very good, I would take the loaded team like Joe Montana and the 49ers, and my buddy who had the game mastered, right? He would take the scrub teams, right? Like the Titans this year. And that was the game. Could he beat me? I had the best guys. He had the worst guys. You know, he had the Colts with Jack Trudeau quarterbacking and stuff like that. And that was the game.
Yeah, but and we also, you know, talked earlier about, you know, how do you, and this sort of goes in line to, you know, Will Levis and his lack of production or whatnot. What I said about the Cincinnati Bengals, I think rings true about, you know, this team in general. If you want to beat Cincinnati, you got to run the football, and you got to be committed to running the football, which keeps your team on the field for a long periods of time. They had a chance to win that Jacksonville game. They ran the football consistently, and they stuck with it, and they ate up the clock. But they couldn't score once they got down there. And that's what you talk about, Willie. If you're going to take up time, you need to end it with 6 points and an extra point for 7. You don't need to end it with 3 points, because you end it with 3 points with a guy like Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, they're going to come back and they're going to score 7 on you, and you're down already. So to me, they can continue to help Will Levis. And I think this is what Brian Callahan has been trying to do. But he hasn't had the consistency at the running back position in regards to health either. I think Pollard has been consistent the whole season. I think him, like Derrick Henry, was just working with what he has in front of him. Now, Derrick Henry is a different back, so you're going to get a different result. Pollard is still getting results, but they're not like a Derrick Henry result. Derrick Henry can get hit behind the line of scrimmage and still get you 3 or 4 yards. Pollard may get hit by the line of scrimmage and get you 2 yards. It's still positive, but it's not Derrick Henry. But what they got to continue to do is run the football, and I think that's what Brian Callahan wants to do, and that's what he probably didn't do at the beginning of the season. He put a lot of emphasis on Will Levis and him and it being his team, and we saw how that fared for the Titans. And I think now, since he's come back from injury, they've said, no, we're going to do this a different way. We're going to run the football, but we got to be committed and stick to the run and give Will Levis 19 to 25 opportunities to throw the ball down the field. Anything more than that, we're losing. Or we're going to lose the game, or we're losing at that moment.
I think the one thing that's impressed me most about Tony Pollard's production this season is the amount of times he's hit behind the line of scrimmage. Like he for the amount of yards that he has, and he has 937 rushing yards this season. Considering, I mean, I know there's a stat for this, I just can't find it quickly enough. But I remember reading actually after the game last week that Pollard was contacted behind the line of scrimmage on just 19% of his carries against the Jaguars, which was the lowest rate in a game this season. So he is constantly being contacted behind the line of scrimmage and has been able to reel off some impressive runs. So is he Derrick Henry? Absolutely not. He's not Derrick Henry. But I've been impressed by his production relative to the fact that the offensive line hasn't given him much room to maneuver.
But it's not Tony Pollard's fault, but he is who he is at this stage. He is a guy that he doesn't move the needle with the game.
He's
plan.
a shared
Like
back. He's a shared back guy.
And if you want to look at counting stats, he's going to have his third straight 1,000-yard rushing season. But as we know, like that's not what it's about. It's not. It's like you're talking about with the defense. It's not just the yards you get. It's what's happening on every play. His success rate. You know, how is he helping in the receiving game? And it's not needle moving kind of stuff. And I don't think that they expected him to be that big. The bigger disappointment is Spears not complimenting him. I think Pollard has done about what they hoped he would do. He's been a good, solid pro. He does the job. But Spears was the guy I hoped was going to take a big step forward, and you were going to talk about explosive plays and a threat and things like that. So the running game as a whole, in trying to replace Derrick Henry, has been a major step back. And the offensive line has something to do with it, et cetera. But I'm not sure we've talked about that much, because if you look at Tony Pollard, 213 carries, 937 yards, you're like, okay, that's not bad. He had a nice game last week. He's a good guy. He works hard. He's out there every week. He hasn't been hurt, but it's not the same thing as what they have had the last 5, 6, 7 years when they've had an ultra weapon back there.
But I don't think anyone expected Tony Pollard to come in and be Derrick Henry. I think what they wanted Tony Pollard to come in and do is to run the way he had been running in Dallas, physical between the tackles, and give us a little bit, from a third down standpoint as far as catching the ball out the backfield. Pollard to me is one of those guys that plays 13 years, 14 years, and ends up with 1,300 yards rushing. And you look 13,000 yards rushing, and you look at him like, how did he do that? But his consistency is what it's all about. Pollard is consistent. He may not give you what Derrick Henry can give you, and not many backs can do that. But what he does is he's a steady force. He's consistent. If you give him the ball, he's consistent. He's going to get you yardage, and he's going to be able to do the things you need to do. Is he going to be Derrick Henry and stiff arm 5 people and on the way to running 99 yards for a touchdown? No, he's not going to be that guy. But what he is he's one of those old school guys. Just give me the ball, coach. And eventually I'm going to keep chugging away, and eventually I'm going to break one. He's one of those guys again. Plays 13, 14 years, and you look like, man, he got 13,000 yards? Averaging 4 yards per carry. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I'll just tell you that in the Aaron Schatz FTN fantasy numbers, the old Football Outsiders, the efficiency, and this is maybe more of a reflection of the whole offense and not just the individual. And this could be cruel. I don't think it passes the eye test. I think he's better deserving of these grades here, but he grades among the lowest in the league who have carried the ball a significant amount of time. He grades about 30% below average in the rates. I think that's unfair, but it's just perspective on you have to look deeper into the numbers, because I do think it looks better in the eye test than the efficiency, but the overall offense is very inefficient, as we know.
You mentioned success rate, Willie, which is a way to indicate a running back's ability to keep the offense on schedule. Among qualified rushers, and this also includes quarterbacks as well, there are 42 qualified rushers. He ranks 31st in success rate at 35.7%. By comparison, Derrick Henry, I just lost him. Derrick Henry ranks 10th in the NFL at 45%. Since we mentioned Derrick Henry, I just wanted to use that as a comparison.
Well, it's hard to compare Derrick Henry or anybody to Derrick Henry. I don't care what back it is.
You know what I'll do? I'm going to go back and look at what Derrick Henry's success rate was last season with the Tennessee Titans.
See, for example, and this
it wasn't great.
He was at 37.1% last season. So I just said 45% with the Ravens, 37.1%. So he's roughly this. Derrick Henry last season, in terms of success rate, easy for me to say, was roughly the same as Tony Pollard this season.
And it's the line that. But here's what I'm saying about Tony Pollard. He's one of those guys that because he's not flashy and he doesn't pop off all these great runs, that people tend to forget about. This guy's been playing 6 seasons or 5 seasons, going on 6.
Thereabouts.
Yeah, 6. This would be a 6th season. He has 5,000 yards, averaging close to 5,000 yards, averaging 4.7 yards per carry. You wouldn't have thought of it when you think about Tony Pollard. He's just one of those guys that do his job. He do it consistent. It's not a wow every year, but he's consistent, and you know exactly what you're going to get out of him. And maybe they need a guy that's like a wild card. Like he's going to give you that one-run hitter. He may give it to you, but you know you got it in him.
That's where Spears.
Yeah.
That's where Spears has not been what they hoped. Let me correct what I said because I was off on my numbers. I was looking at his receiving totals. Pollard as a receiver has not graded out well. Minus 30%, below 30% below average. Pollard as a runner is more close to league average, minus 1%. So he's right at league average. So not needle moving. And the thing that you can't quantify when you compare it to Henry is how do you game plan for Henry? How do you game plan for Pollard? It's probably two different things for sure. So Pollard, steady, no question. But the impact of the Titans running game as a whole, when you combine Pollard and Spears as runners and receivers, because remember, that was a big part. They wanted to use the receivers as running backs, which is something that Henry really didn't bring to the table. It just hasn't been, I think, what they hoped. It's another thing on top of all of the other things that they envisioned for this offense that hasn't really come around.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on the Titans. Tony Pollard, Will Levis, whatever you'd like on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. But coming up next, it's Friday. It's almost 12:30, which means it's time for Ask D-Mace. So get your questions in now at 615-737. Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, the game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason. Happy Friday, by the way. You've heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. And we don't want that to happen to you anymore. So, but at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw. Touchdown, Derek Mason.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
Midfield, and there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D-Mace.
We'll welcome you in.
Now, D-Mace on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It's time for Ask D-Mace on D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, 615-737-1025. Get your questions in for Derek now on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Let's do it.
Anything you want, within reason. I do screen these questions. We don't want to get inappropriate.
Never.
But if you have any questions for Derek about football, about life, about whatever, you can get them in now at 615-737-1025. Well, let's start with this from Justin from Greenbrier on our text line. Justin would love to know, Derek, what's your favorite thing about Christmas season? Other than Lifetime or Hallmark movies?
Yeah, other than Lifetime Hallmark movies, just family, just being, having, another, opportunity, another year with the family. It's not so much at this age for me and for my children. It's not so much about gifts, even though, they have a few things that they want. I think it's just about, the time spent now. So that's what I really enjoy about Christmas. The trying to get presents, that stresses me out. So, I'm glad I'm happy that my kids are older now. But just trying to get presents when they're younger, man, it stresses you out big time. So
you're telling me.
Exactly.
I'm dealing with that
absolutely.
right now.
You know it.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So for me, it's just family, and Hallmark movies.
And Hallmark movies. One thing that kids these days, they just don't get, because now you can just order everything online. There was a time on Black Friday. It wasn't even Black Friday yet. It was Thanksgiving evening. You'd eat your dinner, and then you'd go camp outside of the big box store so that you could get in when the Black Friday deal started. And you had to run to the aisle to make sure that what you wanted was there. Now you can just put it in your Amazon gift card, Amazon shopping cart, and you don't even need to worry about it.
Exactly. I remember one like Black Friday, we were at Walmart, and they literally just saw people just like slinging off all the wrapping paper in this, like, for these towels that were on sale. It was insane how bad it was.
People really want towels.
At that time.
Willie, I'm sure you and your wife have been empty nesters. I'm sure you'll be happy to have your children home for the holidays.
Oh, for sure. But it is, as the kids get older, it does completely change the dynamic of what you have to do as opposed to when they're young and you're trying to coordinate all of the angles, stockings and what's the big gift and what's, how do we balance between the two kids? It can be stressful for sure.
Yes. We've done all of our Christmas shopping. My goal is to make sure that my son's attention is kept by all of these toys for more than a couple of minutes at a time. It's hard to do when you're 3 years old, but we'll try our best. Jerry is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, with a question for Derek. Jerry, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
D-Mace, will we ever see you run for office? And if so, what office would you run for?
Okay. Thanks, Jerry. Will you ever run for office?
Nah, I won't run for office, man. I can't. I don't think I have patience for politics, because you go in. I think you go in with this sort of rosary type of feel, and everything's great and dandy. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and watch me change the surroundings. And then you go in and you realize, man, can't do it. And you end up being, becoming what you didn't want to become in the midst of all of that. So, but I do commend those that go into politics and they stay true to who they are. And I have to placate to, if you don't agree with your party, say you don't agree with your party and still be able to do some things. I don't think it's like that anymore. You can't disagree with your party and them still, think highly of you. The minute you don't agree with them, then all of a sudden they want to excommunicate you from the party. So I couldn't do it. I thought about it at one point in my after retiring, but then I'm like, man, I can't. It's just too much.
You thought about running for office after you retired?
At a smaller level.
Okay.
I had talked with a friend of mine who's sort of in those circles, and he and I had a conversation about it. And it was sort of like a 10-year plan thing. But I'm like, man, that's not something that, because I know how I am, and if I'm passionate about something, I don't care which side I'm on, I'm going to speak loudly about it. And I'm not going to placate to, someone or a group of people. So for that, that alone, I'm like, nah, I can't. And it makes people ugly, man. It does. It just, we've seen so much of it. So no.
Vote for Derek Mason. You're in good hands.
Oh yeah, I will get. Hey, listen,
how about that?
You voted for me, I'm gonna tell you straight up.
I think you could be a Hallmark mayor.
But you see what I did there? Good hands. You're
good hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that okay. I just want to make sure
you could be on my team.
Okay. The only thing I can provide are puns. That's
the only
you
have the analytics down. I know that for sure.
Not when it comes to politics. That's the one thing I don't have down. Eric is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Eric, let's hear your dad joke and your question.
Okay, here's my dad joke. D-Mace, I hope you like this. This is one I heard recently. You may or may not like this, so I'm just telling you up front.
Go ahead, Eric.
What has 4 legs and flies?
4 legs and fly? Man. Whew.
And flies.
And flies. 4 legs and flies, a horse. I guess.
Well, yeah, you got part of it. A horse in summertime.
Oh, I could. Oh, okay. I see that.
Because it's stinky.
Yeah, stinky and
stinky,
horse. That's
stinky.
That's why I said a horse.
Yeah. You got it pretty much. Okay, my question is this. One of the things, and I'm sure you guys probably discussed this yesterday, was Gentry Ellis's column on the Titans yesterday, open letter Amen of Trump, which I had no problem with. I didn't hear the whole letter, but I definitely heard excerpts of it. I've seen it. But then there was something else that I heard on another show that somebody threw out there, which I didn't think of, and I don't know if it would change their opinion or whatever. But one of the things they threw out was interesting. Of course, you had the COVID years a few years ago, and a lot of people wondered if COVID had happened, maybe some of the draft selection, maybe some of the decisions made would not have been made. Of course, we'll never know about that. But just wanted to get your guys' perspective on that, about COVID and some of the decisions that were made, whether it was draft or whatever. Do you think that if COVID hadn't happened, some of the decisions that were made leading up to this may or may not have been made? And just wanted to get your thoughts about that. A lot of people said if the decisions weren't made during COVID, maybe Robinson's not fired, maybe they make better draft selections. I don't know, because COVID may have hampered some of the ways they went about things and did on the decision making. Just want to get your thoughts on that. Guys, it's always good to talk to you. Take care. Have a great weekend. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Eric. So the drafts that would have been impacted by COVID, obviously 2020. I assume 2021 as well. Are those the two?
Yeah, it's 20 and 21. Really 20.
Yes.
In 21, some of the restrictions started to be lifted as far as how you can see an individual, you can talk to them or whatnot. I think some of those restrictions.
I've tried to memory hold that entire period.
Yeah, that period was just all muddy.
Yes. But of course, in 2020, the Titans drafted Isaiah Wilson. They drafted Christian Fulton, Darrington Evans, among others. In 2021, it was led by Caleb Farley, then Dylan Radins, Monty Rice, Elijah Molden, Des Fitzpatrick, Rashad Weaver, Racey McMath. So not a strong draft.
No contributors, really.
Yes, no. With the possible exception of Radins.
Yeah, Radins is one of the guys that's still contributing to this team. To say it didn't affect teams, I think would be disingenuous. I think, it affected every team in some way. Now, others probably were able to navigate through it a little bit better. Some organizations. But I do believe those 2 years affected every team in the National Football League. Hell, it affected every sport, We talked about how the Predators talked about, how it affected them, the whole, COVID and everything in regards to how do you watch players and how you evaluate players and stuff like that. So I'm sure it hurt the Titans in some way, but we can't let that be an excuse for them because that's what 4 years removed now, and you've had an opportunity, just like every other team has had an opportunity, to reassess some things, to reevaluate some things, and to try to make your roster better. I still believe that had the Titans hit on their quarterback now, they wouldn't have these problems that they're having. But because they didn't hit on their quarterback, and I don't think that has anything to do with the COVID years, but because they didn't hit on their quarterback, this is where they sit. I don't think it was so much about COVID and the flops that they had, because even with your flops, as a lot of other teams have, when they have that one guy underneath center, that cures a lot of the things that may go wrong. And that allows people to keep their job probably a little bit longer than what they deserve.
615-737-1025 will continue to take your calls and texts for Derek. We will do another segment of Ask D-Mace coming up next. So if you didn't get a question in now, you certainly can at 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We've got some more Ask D-Mace questions. If you want to get in on this, call us, text us, 615-737-1025. Matthew in Nashville says, Derek, as a Michigan State fan, what do you make of Ohio State's athletic director last night feeling compelled to release a statement to Ohio State fans asking them to stop selling their tickets to Tennessee fans so they don't have an orange horseshoe? Vols fans, included myself, will spend money to see our team play. Guess OSU doesn't want to make any money.
I guess not. I mean, listen, if you are asking, your fan base to not sell your tickets, then do you really have a fan base? Is that a fan base that you've thought for so long that they were this loyal fan base? This is a playoff game. You shouldn't have to come out and say, don't sell your tickets to Tennessee fans. You shouldn't have to say that. Now, granted, listen, that's their tickets, and I'm sure they can get a pretty penny for it. But this is a college football playoff in the first ever 12-game college football playoffs where you can have a home game as one of your very first games. Why would you want to sell your tickets anyway? As a fan of Ohio State Buckeyes, why would you want to? Now, if you was Chris, I know why you would want to sell your tickets, but y'all not Chris, so why?
They didn't give him any tickets anyway.
Exactly, they didn't give him tickets anyway. But why would you, as an athletic director or president, feel you should feel the need to come out and tell people, Ohio State fans and alumni not to sell your tickets? You shouldn't have to say that.
I think there are posters outside of the horseshoe saying, do not let this man in, with a picture of Chris Sanders. Have you seen this man? Barred from the building.
Exactly. So
yeah,
but I mean, AD, I understand why he's doing it, but man, listen, this is the very first college playoff game ever in your building. You shouldn't you want to go as an Ohio State fan?
They're probably nervous.
You still should want to go, right? That's your team.
Through thick and thin, you should go. By the way, the Ohio State athletic director also said on Thursday that he is, quote unquote, absolutely confident that Ryan Day will be back as the Buckeyes coach. So maybe they thought this would be the end of Ryan Day. And now that he's apparently not going to get fired if they lose, maybe they don't want to go anymore.
Yeah, that could be what they decided to do. But listen, college students, they're going to come no matter what, because it's a big party for them. Especially if the team's good. I mean, they're going to come just to party.
Let's see here. Wes in Clarksville wants to know, Derek, what is the most favorite thing you were able to do with your family because of the fruits you received from the NFL?
To be there every day, to, pick them up from school. And this is during the off season. The ability to pick them up from school every day, to drop them off every day, to watch practice. Those are some of the things that, I cherish the most because, listen, just, an everyday working family, it's hard for them to spend time with their family. Why? Because they're working so much to try to provide for their family. And I know there are countless amounts of dads and moms who wish they could just, take a day off or a week off and be there with their kids, whether to pick them up, drop them off, go to a game, go to a recital. But sometimes because of work, you can't do that because you have to work. But I was blessed to play a sport where, it afforded me the ability for 3 months outside of my working out that I was there to take, my son and daughter to school in the morning, that I picked them up from school, that I was able to watch their practices during those periods, those 3-4 months where we were not playing, more like 5 or 6. So that's the thing that I cherish the most, not being able to go on trips and stuff like that, even though that is great and his memories being built. But more than anything, what you're doing I've always said this, like picking kids up from school, being there with them at practice, taking them to the barbershop. That stuff means a lot to them when they grow up and become adults. Because what they tend to do is replicate what you did and going to the barbershop. I loved going to the barbershop with DJ every week. He got to a point was like, Dad, we don't need to go every week now. Let's go every 2 weeks. But I just love that time with he and I, where we can go and he could be around the fellas and we can, just talk barbershop stuff. And he was good with that. But then it came to a point was like, Dad, I want to be with my friends some of these Fridays. I want to have to rush to get a haircut. So it's just moments like that, or whether it was, me going to pick my daughter up at school, sitting there with her at practice for the entirety of the practice, and then us driving home and talking about, what went on or what happened at school.
Willie, I'm sure you and I both fondly remember the days where we needed to go to a barbershop. I haven't had to go to a barbershop.
Yep, it's been a while. I have to say. Yep.
I guess Derek as well.
Yeah, but it was more so for Derek than me. I got my beard trimmed, stuff like that. But it was more so, man, like
camaraderie.
I wish like when I was young, because my parents worked their tails off. My one worked in the morning, one worked in the evening. Sometimes both of them worked in the evening, just depending on their shifts. So I know how important it is when you can go to a barbershop with your son, or if you're a mom, you can go to a hairstylist with your daughter and y'all just sit there. And it's just, being in a barbershop is different, man. I wish I could have done that with my dad when I was Derek's age, because I know that would have meant a lot to me. But we were under different circumstances, and my parents had to work and all day, every day. So just moments like that, man, that means a lot.
Willie, I want to bring up a conversation that we started having yesterday before you joined the program. The heat has been turned up on Amy Adams Strunk. Gentry Estes of the Tennessean wrote a column in the form of an open letter that circulated around quite a bit yesterday. I enjoyed the column from Gentry, but this has been a hot topic of conversation throughout town over the past several weeks. But I feel like it's ramped up over the past week or so about the lack of accountability from Amy Adams Strunk and the decision makers over at the Titans as compared to what we have been used to with the Predators, with Barry Trotz coming on our station every week, Sean Henry being a regular, making regular appearances on our station, answering questions on behalf of ownership. I'm curious where you stand on this issue that seems to be popping up.
I think we discussed this a few weeks ago in pretty good detail, and I would stay consistent with what I said back then. I don't think Amy Adams Strunk is comfortable being a spokesperson. She's certainly made some big decisions, and when she does, she has her way of sort of communicating with why she made the decision. But what I think is lacking is, if you're not going to be, like when you own the team, you don't have to be accountable. You can do whatever you want, and the people can decide whether you want to back an organization like that or not. So that's her prerogative. That's the owner. But I think it's smart. Most organizations who have an owner like that, you have an executive and you have a spokesperson who really can answer the questions that fans have, be out in front. And then you, on top of that, have a general manager that has chosen not to be in the forefront. I think that stings as well. So you have Brian Callahan on the island every week, a rookie, young head coach that's trying to find his way, that his first year has not gone great. He's had a lot thrown at him, and this is trial by fire for him. And he's got to be sitting there going, man, I got to answer all the questions every week. Where is everybody else? General manager doesn't answer a lot of questions. They don't have a Sean Henry type that is out there sort of giving the message. They don't have an ambassador. We've talked about somebody like a Jeff Fisher. In another world, maybe it would be an Eddie George if he weren't doing what he's doing now. But somebody like that who can take some of the heat off and be that person that makes the fans feel better about what they're selling. They have a big hole right there.
Look, we in the quote unquote media, we tend to get accused of navel gazing, making things that are important to us, we try to make them important to everybody else. But I have noticed, Derek, that as this team has continued to struggle, and we played the clip from Charles Robinson yesterday when he was on with Robbie and Joe, I thought he nailed it with, if Amy Adams Strunk is expecting Titans fans to pay the amount of money that it's going to cost to get a seat in the new stadium, you better be accessible. You better be accountable. And I remember Joe asked Charles, what's the upside if you're Amy Adams Strunk? To Willie's point, perhaps, what's the upside of having Amy Adams Strunk speak, especially if she is not a comfortable public speaker? And Charles's response was, well, you take that off the table. She's not held accountable. She doesn't make herself accountable or accessible. You can take that off the table because at least she is making herself accountable and or accessible. But, I'm very curious to see what the crowd is like this weekend. I mean, I'm not expecting a Vikings level takeover from Cincinnati Bengals fans, but if the crowd is sparse or it's mostly Bengals fans, I mean, those are the images that get owners to act.
Well,
I think it'll be sparse, and it will be a lot of Bengals fans. I think that's what the combination is going to be. I continue to say, if it's not the owner herself, that's fine, but you got to have somebody else, like Sean Henry, and before him, it was a combination of Sean Henry and Jeff Kogan. When the ownership group for the Predators was together, you didn't see them out there having press conferences every week. They were largely in the backdrop, but they had people that understood how important that connection is, feeling like the fan base is connected and they've got somebody they can bring their questions to. Who is that person for the Titans?
Well, they haven't. We would have assumed it was Rand Carthon and Brinker.
No,
they are not. Yeah, but they're not out as much as people, as the fan base would like. See, when you're winning, they don't care if you're out or not, the fan base. But when there's some struggles and consistent struggles in your organization, that's when the fan base just wants to hear you say, it'll be okay. We're still with the process. This is how far along we are in the process. Yes, we've had some setbacks with injuries. You can even throw the injuries in there. We've had some setbacks, but we are still on task at what we were thinking at the beginning of the season. And we talked about this, some years ago, Willie, that, listen, a lot of this that is happening is geared toward that stadium opening, because the one thing you don't want to have, see, it worked out perfectly for a dad. That was just lightning in the bottle. You got it, and it was good. Where the year we moved into the stadium was the year it was just like we just took off as a team. And ultimately, we found ourselves in the Super Bowl that very first year in the Philadelphia Stadium. We went 8-0 in that building. So we had set a mentality. We had set sort of a standard of being in that building and playing in that building. Right now, you don't have that. And that is what you want headed into the new stadium is, okay, the product on the field is good. So we're going to walk into that stadium and everybody is going to be clambering through windows to try to get in. Right now, you can't pay nobody to take one of these high-priced seats. Or if you do, it's like, man, people are now really thinking, do I want to buy these seats? Because not only is the team bad, but no one has come out front to talk about really what's going on or reassure us. Just reassure us that everything is okay. Everything is still, the plan is still in place. We're still, moving ahead. We may have taken a step back, but we're still moving ahead. But the plan is in place and we feel good about it. Nobody has said that. And they made some really critical moves this season and at the beginning of the right before the season started with free agency, not signing Derrick Henry back. These are big decisions that you made, and nobody's really there to sort of help the fan base along as these decisions are being made and why you're not a good team.
615-737-1067 1025. Coming up next, we didn't get to it in the last hour, so we'll do it next. I mentioned earlier that there is a quarterback who could potentially be available this offseason that I would stay away from personally. And we'll get to that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, the game.
Hey, time to tell you about Lee Company. The Predators got a big, big win last night to finally break the drought, beat a very good team in the Dallas Stars 4-1, and they're back in action tomorrow night here in Colorado, where I am, in Denver, to take on the Avalanche. And so we're looking forward to that. Why do I mention this? Because Lee Company is a proud sponsor of Nashville Predators hockey. They have been for a long, long time. Lee Company also supports us in the Donick House with our year-round coverage we get from them. They're always a phone call away, 615-567-1000. We even got a brand new air conditioning and heating unit last summer. It was just that time. We had been in our house for a long, long time. Time to re-up. And Lee Company was really helpful with that process. They have excellent customer service. So give them a call, 615-567-1000, or go online at leecompany.com. If you had issues with your heater, or if you need some general maintenance, or you're thinking about a home improvement project, all of these things are on their agenda. They've been in business since 1944. It's Lee Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063, The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan here with you. Before we get to our next topic, I did like this text from Scott in Hendersonville based on our conversation about Titans ownership. He said, what y'all are describing about the Titans is the same as Derek was saying about taking his kid to the barbershop. It's how you build the relationship during the good times that matters when times get tough.
Great example.
And I agree with that. He says, he continues, it's why you keep dating
Where
your spouse.
do you go? Like, you can go to the barbershop.
Right.
And you know you're going to have this connection conversation. That's why you go. So that's where, like, where is the Titans barbershop? Like, who's the person that you go and can connect with for questions you have? Not necessarily like who's going to be the left tackle, who's going to be the right tackle, but just all questions. Like, hey, why are these tickets so expensive? You know, I've been at season ticket holder since X. Here are my issues. There's all kinds of different things that I just feel like have not been. The answer isn't easy. It's not at the tip of your tongue, right? If you ask a Titans fan, where do you go when you want to connect or, as you say, hold somebody accountable?
That's right. You can talk about lining up other things, but just not the offensive line when you go to the barbershop. But okay, so I meant to get to this in the previous hour, but we did some other things. So I saw this tweeted into my timeline by the 33rd team, and I'm not sure exactly how they come up with this, but it was a graphic showing the odds of Sam Darnold's next team according to Bovada. The Vikings were the favorite at minus 105. This was from last week. The Titans were the second favorite at plus 325. And we've talked about Sam Darnold as a potential starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans next season because we wonder if he might price himself out of Minnesota. They do have J.J. McCarthy, who has missed the season after undergoing knee operations. He may price himself out of Minnesota. He's been incredibly impressive for the Vikings this season. He has resurrected his career with the Vikings. And I said this to Derek earlier, Willie, and I'd be curious for your thoughts. For some reason, I'm getting some Daniel Jones before the Giants signed him to that gigantic contract vibes from Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold's production on the field this season has been more prolific than Daniel Jones the year before he signed the big deal when they went to the playoffs and, by the way, beat the Vikings in a playoff game on the road. But I'm just getting I just have a feeling that if the Vikings move on from Sam Darnold and another team scoops him up and signs him to a big deal, I think that team is going to regret it. I just think that the infrastructure in place for Sam Darnold in Minnesota this year has been perfect. He has a coach in Kevin O'Connell who has done a masterful job of scheming things up. Of course, he has an excellent wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. I just think that take Sam Darnold and put him on this team in this situation. He doesn't have that explosive weapon in Justin Jefferson. Brian Callahan, at least so far, has not shown himself to be the tactician that Kevin O'Connell appears to be. I just think that if the Titans were to make this decision, I think they would regret it. I just have I don't know why, but I just have this. Sam Darnold is what Daniel Jones was, whatever year that was. I don't remember which year that was before he signed the big deal. I just think that if the Titans were to sign Darnold to a similar contract, I think they would regret it.
Yeah, the difference with Daniel Jones is he had been drafted by the Giants, and he did, after some ups and downs, have the big year where they won the playoff game, ironically, in Minnesota against the Vikings. So he did have a good year in there, which kind of gave them hope when they were starting to get, ready to maybe pass on him and go to the next thing. They re-upped and they got burned. So Darnold is now been bounced around a couple different times, and here he is. He's found his spot. The last time we had this discussion, guys, was the week that the Vikings came to town to play the Titans, and Darnold had come off a couple of not great performances, right? Looked like he was maybe coming back to earth. To his credit, he's bounced back and he's played really well. And he maybe had his best game ever on Sunday. And his numbers look really good. Like he's up there. We talked about how low Will Levis grades, basically in all the metric, it's like above Deshaun Watson. That's about it. Darnold's up there in the top 10, at least this year. And I do think it's a big dilemma. But what that does is if the Vikings do move on from him, then it's only going to up what you have to pay to get him. And so the bang for your buck is going to be a big, big question mark. And changing addresses, I agree with you. I'm going to stay consistent that I don't think it would be a smart move for the Titans to invest big in Darnold. You probably have to overpay to get him. And I think he is a guy that is having an overachieving career year on the right team for him.
Now, listen, because I'm not going to sort of go back with what I said, because we had this discussion or somewhat this discussion a few weeks ago in regards to Sam Darnold right before the Titans played the Minnesota Vikings. And my thing was back then, listen, if you don't know, if you have a question mark above Will Levis after this season, then you need to do one or two things. You need to draft your quarterback, or you need to go get a veteran quarterback to push Will Levis to see what happens. Because at worst, you have Will Levis as a backup. And I mentioned a guy like Sam Darnold, but I wouldn't see. Here's the problem with a guy like Sam Darnold. How long are you willing to commit to him? Because listen, Sam's 29, 28, somewhere around there, 29 years old. He's looking for...
He's 27.
Yeah, 27. So he's looking for a long-term contract. We're talking about 4 to 5 years, worth probably north of $35 million. If I'm the Titans, I can't commit unless I believe he can be that quarterback we've been looking for, a la Ryan Tannehill. If that is the case, I can sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal, opt out of it after 3, and see where, because that takes you right into the new stadium. And then listen, that gives Will Levis an opportunity to sit back and watch, and you can make a decision on Will Levis the year after that, whether you're going to keep him as a backup or allow him to go somewhere else. But the only way you bring in a Sam Darnold is if, one, you don't have to commit to him if you're not looking at him as a long-term fix. But I don't think he's going to do that. He's not going to take anything less than a 3-year deal, I don't believe. Now, it may come to push and shove. He may have to, but sitting where he's sitting now, he would be a fool to take something less than 3 years. So if you can't get him under that 3 years, then you might as well sign him to a 5-year deal where you guarantee him some money and you can opt out of it after the 2nd or 3rd year, because that's what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did with Baker Mayfield. After 2025, they can opt out of it. So originally, it really was a 2-year deal, opting out of it after the 2nd year. You can have, but in totality, it was like a 5-year deal. But you can structure it in that way where if you think he's your guy and you want to have him for the next 4 years, possibly 5, then you sign him to a contract that says that, but that you can opt out of it after, say, 3 years.
I'm just not convinced that Darnold has suddenly transformed into a different player. Like, I think that I think that he's had a great year, no doubt. He's absolutely had a great year. And I think the fact that, and look, he's been a product of some poor environments with the Jets and bounced around to the Panthers for a hot second, got an opportunity to sit back with the 49ers. I hope I have that career trajectory correct. But I just don't believe that he has just suddenly become this level of quarterback and this is what he's going to be. So I whether it's the Titans or somebody else, but when I saw those odds from Bovada, and again, I don't know how they come up with this, but when I saw those odds from Bovada that had the Titans as the favorite, if not the Vikings retaining him, I just thought I think they would be making a mistake if they signed Darnold to the contract that he may command because of his play this season.
If you were the Vikings, like I think probably this has yet to be determined because you want to see how he does. They're going to be in the postseason, and as we know, there's not a lot of buys, so you got to. There may be multiple playoff games here, and there also could be a chance where he goes into the playoffs and doesn't play well. But is it smart to just why wouldn't they bring him back? I think it's an interesting dilemma that the Vikings are in. Why would you just assume that J.J. McCarthy is going to be really good? How do you know?
We don't.
Like the bird in hand is worth something here, and again, he's in that middle tier. You're not paying him Trevor Lawrence, Tua, Love, franchise level type of salaries. You're getting good production at a lesser price. That's worth something. But what's the next deal going to be? How much can they get him to stay for? Because if you're Darnold too, I think you might be willing to take a little less to stay in a place where you've been successful.
You know who else is available to the Minnesota Vikings? He's on their team. Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones is going to be a free agent. Daniel Jones is going to be a free agent at the end of the season. I told Derek, now here would be the crazy thing, that Sam Darnold gets hurt in the last game of the regular season, and Daniel Jones quarterbacks the Vikings to a first-round win. To up his stock. And he's like, here I am. I'm here. I'm there. Sign me to a deal. I could be your next guy. Titans.
Yeah.
We know how Derek feels about Daniel Jones on the Titans.
I think Minnesota brought Daniel Jones in because they know they will be losing Sam Darnold, and they're not looking to sign him back under no conditions unless he wants to come back for $10-15 million. But they are looking to move on from Sam Darnold. I think that's why they signed Daniel Jones.
But is that
Daniel
smart?
Jones can be the it's smart if you believe that the kid out of Michigan is your guy. If you believe,
but how do you know? He hurt his knee. He hasn't played a single game.
But my thing is,
you're just assuming he's going to be good.
You throw him out there, but you feel, and this is how Kyle Shanahan feels, the exact same way. I can coach you within my system. I can do that. So anybody, sort of like Sean Payton. Sean Payton was the same way with receivers. Like, I could just bring receivers in and out. But why? Because my system allows for guys to get yardage. I just got to find a guy that can catch the ball consistently. That's all I need. So that's why guys were able to overturn that position. They kept a core guy, but they were able to overturn that position. I think O'Connell feels the same way. You saw, perfect example was Sam Darnold. I put him in his system with the weapons that we have, and lo and behold, he looks like a bona fide top 15 quarterback. I can do that with Daniel Jones. That's how Kyle Shanahan feels the same way, whether it's Purdy or anybody else. Put him in my system, and I can give him the play. That's why I think they went out and got Daniel Jones, because they know that the kid from Michigan, he's going to be their guy next year. And if he's not, then Daniel Jones he's played enough games that I believe in my system that I can get him right. Whether it happens or not, that's a different story. But I believe, just like Kyle Shanahan believes that, I believe O'Connell thinks the same thing.
615-737-1025. What are your thoughts on the Titans quarterback situation? Are you as wary of Sam Darnold, whether it's here or somewhere else, as I am? 615-737-1025. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Bingen, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds, only to face disappointment. But at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain. With tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Take it to the bank. Coming up in the next segment. I didn't do so hot last week. Hopefully David will give me at least 1 point, but I may have an offer. We'll find out in the next segment. But we're talking Titans quarterback situation. I have this feeling that Sam Darnold could be the next Daniel Jones, a quarterback who has a good year, seemingly out of nowhere, who gets paid for it, and the team that signs him to that deal will regret it. If it's Minnesota, I don't think that'll be the case, perhaps, because they clearly have shown that they have the environment that is conducive to success for Sam Darnold. But if he comes here, for example, I think it would be a big mistake. Thomas from Hendersonville on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com says, can we please stop acting like Sam Darnold is actually a good quarterback? Look who he's throwing to and compare that to what the Titans have to offer. And let's just say that we did sign Darnold to a contract. When was the last time the Titans developed a quarterback? The Titans signing a quarterback with talent would be like giving a gold bar to a newborn baby. They just don't know what to do with it. They need to ride it out and wait for a long-term solution in the draft over the next 3 to 5 years. We are better off keeping the current quarterback and drafting players to fill gaps and boost the talent level of the team. We are not going to win with any quarterback right now, so why commit long-term funds to another average quarterback?
Listen, the hardest position to find, that guy is the quarterback position. And the longer you either sit in sort of the space that the Titans are in, or the longer you try to avoid sort of the elephant in the room, you're going to continue to be a bad organization. Because now those marquee players are not going to want to come here. Those marquee wide receivers, they're not going to want to come here because they're like, listen, I'm not going to get the ball. There's a reason why A.J. Brown left and went to Philly. It wasn't just the money. And then, they traded him away, obviously. I don't think it had a lot to do with the money. You probably looked at it and said, man, am I going to be able to reach the heights that I know I can reach in this offense with these quarterbacks? And at the time, it was Ryan Tannehill. I get it. So he decided to go where they paid him a little bit more, but he felt a lot better about the quarterback because he had a relationship with him. If you don't get you a quarterback, those high-priced free agents that you try to go after each and every year, especially at the skill position, you're not going to be able to get, because they're going to look at the quarterback position and say, y'all not steady at that position. Y'all and guys at that position just want to catch the football and score touchdowns. That's what they want to do. And if they feel you don't have a quarterback that can help facilitate that, they're not coming. Or they're going to ask you to pay more than what the market says they should be paid. And you may do that. But that doesn't mean now you're going to get instant production. We've seen it with Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, DeAndre Hopkins. You brought these guys in here that were once 1,000-yard receivers. One is on his way to the Hall of Fame. And because the quarterback situation isn't solidified, those guys were subpar here. Look at D-Hop. He was all right here. Could he have been better if they had a better quarterback? Probably could have been. His numbers probably would have been higher. I would beg to differ they would be. But they wasn't. And some of it had to do with the quarterback situation. It's not a situation where you know for sure 100% that you have your guy. So again, if you're not sure, don't meddle around in it. Either use the bathroom or get off the pot, one of the two.
So if it's not like I'm looking at Bill Barnwell's article where you have all of these teams, and he concludes in a lot of situations, this X team that's having quarterback issues, and he's got the Titans as one of the teams, will be looking elsewhere for a quarterback next year. They can't all solve the problem by just drafting a quarterback from this class, I don't think, from what you're hearing.
Not enough out there.
Right. And then you've got other guys, like what happens to Kirk Cousins? Does he get thrown on the pile? What happens with the Steelers guys? those guys. So I guess your choices for the Titans, if it's not, because I think they'll bring back Will Levis in some form. You'll have him there. It's just a matter of how much you want to lean on him being the starter or how much you're actually going to challenge him to win the job back over somebody else. But the Jameis Winstons, the reclamation projects, and there's enough that have had success this year, like Darnold and Baker Mayfield, where you're thinking, who can you find that next guy where it doesn't break the bank and it's a little trial balloon, and if you hit gold, then a lot of this will be solved. Like take Kirk Cousins. If they move on to Michael Penix next year, what happens to Kirk Cousins? And would anybody? What's his value?
It dips tremendously. I tell
Pretty
you that.
low right now.
It's very low right now.
Yeah, and they may have to,
But
and that's what Atlanta may choose to do.
Right? Yeah. Well, I think they probably are going to do that. They'll have to eat some money, which means the next team won't have to pay him as much. So, what does that look like? How old is Cousins now? He's 36, so he'll be 37 next year. Is that worth a flyer for 1 year? I don't know. These are the choices. It's not a great choice because always at any given time, there's at least 10 or 12 teams looking for a quarterback that aren't satisfied with what they've got. Like where's Derek Carr next year?
Yeah.
Is he starting for the Saints next year, or are they tired of the Saints?
Well, he's injured. He's been injured a lot. So,
but I'm talking about for next year. What's your plan at quarterback next year for the Saints?
I think they're running back with him.
Spencer Rattler time, baby.
Oh,
See,
no.
this is where you're at, right? So there's only a few teams. There's way less teams that are sitting there going, "Oh, we got no problem at quarterback. We're set." Than there are teams going, "We've got to have another guy," or "Our guy's okay, but is there something better out there?"
I think it's going to be interesting to see how, how these next 3 games go. And then how this is what I can't, I'm really waiting on the end of the year sort of exit interview or exit press conference. Cause they will have that. And Rand Carthon will be up there. It will be interesting to hear what he says about the quarterback position, because I think what he says is what is being reiterated from up top. If there's a question mark, I think that question mark is coming from up top. If there's still this, Will Levis is our guy, I think a lot of that is coming from above Brian Callahan as well as Rand and Brinkert, because she's come out and said, we got an exciting young quarterback. And I don't think, people didn't believe it when they heard it, and they really don't believe it now. But what does it sound like in the off season when the GM and head coach both at the podium and Brinkert? How does it sound, or what are the talking points when it comes to Will Levis at that particular time? Because I would tend to believe either way, a lot of it's coming from the owner, whether it's good or bad, about Will Levis.
It's a good question, and hey, I'll gladly take a news conference of any kind from anybody who is willing to answer questions, because we want to hear what they have to say, as I'm sure all of you do as well. Chuck says, I agree with us moving on from Levis, and if Darnold is available for a decent price, he's got to be better than what we've got. Well,
the decent price though, that's going to be it. We just talk about supply and demand. Somebody coming off a year like that is going to get paid a lot. A lot. Are you ready to do that?
He's going to want mid-30s. And I think he's going to try to push more for something more that is going to be 3 years or plus for him. So if you are able to stomach that, then okay. But you got to find, again, I'll go back to what Barry Trotz said. He wished he could have been a little bit more creative. He's not saying he would offer more years or more money. He's just saying, I wish I could have been a little bit more creative at that position. Well, how creative are you going to be, Rand Carthon, Brinkert, Callahan, Amy? How are you going to be able to you know, creatively try to get your quarterback in place if you don't believe Will Levis is the guy? What are you willing to do to go get your guy, whether it be via the draft or free agency?
Well, Justin Fields intrigues me. If the Steelers were to stick with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields became available, he's young. He's, I think, 25 or 26, has shown some promise and has bounced around now, but perhaps you could put the infrastructure in place to get the best out of him and you can grow with him. Like, what do you think about that idea? Finding someone like Fields, who's been in the league now for a few years, but is still young enough where perhaps you can still get more out of him.
Man, that's I don't know about. I mean, heck of a talent, but then I think you're falling into sort of the same situation you were in with Will Levis. Like,
that's fair.
Okay, yeah, this
and
guy
more
showed
money.
exactly
He's
more money.
He's an unrestricted free agent, so he's going to have a market. You're going to have people because they're desperate. It's going to cost you to get him.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, that would be, again, you're falling into the same trap that you fell in with Will Levis. Yeah, you saw him play some good football, at the beginning of the season when he had to start the first 6 games, but you also saw some bad football too. If you bring him here, how much of that bad football can you get rid of, and can you build on the good football that he did play? I'm not sure. And you don't want to be in a space. I just don't want them to be in a space where there's a question mark at that position. Find a question mark at another position, but at least solidify your quarterback position. Like, this is my guy. We're moving forward with them. No questions asked.
Might be harder to do that than you think.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy.
Things to do.
Yeah,
but I think the idea of having 2 possible ways that you could get decent quarterback play next year, if you're not going to invest in the first round pick, which is always a game that a lot of teams play every year. If you're not doing that, then Levis plus another budgetary, assess what your budget is and find somebody else that could be the solution, kind of like they did with Tannehill and Mariota, and that got them some good wins and a lot of success, right? Tannehill's tenure looks better every year, right? As we get removed from it. Like, they're so far removed from division championships and things like that. They hit on that because they got a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, but they got a good quarterback for a reasonable price.
But
they cost them nothing to get him, basically.
But can they again hit what looks like a single and it ends up being an in the park triple?
That's hard.
In the park triple. Can they do that again? They did it with Ryan Tannehill. It was a single and they got a triple out of it. Could they do it once again with another quarterback? Because essentially, that's the situation you're in.
One texter suggests Sam Howell instead of Justin Fields.
I mean, Sam Howell did play some good football for Washington. I don't even know where he's at now.
He's the backup in Seattle, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, but again, he's the same type of guy, but I don't know. He played some good football in Washington. I give him that. But obviously,
he was turnover prone in Washington.
He didn't do enough to be able to keep that job.
Speaking of turnover prone, another texter suggests Jameis Winston.
Oh, I love
the Jameis Winston experience.
Exactly.
Yes.
We saw that on Monday night a couple Mondays ago. My goodness.
Listen, we have a lot to talk about, Willie, if he became the starter here.
Oh, man.
Sure. Well, Winston, he's exciting, right?
Yeah.
He makes plays, but he also makes plays for the other team.
He makes plays for everybody.
Didn't he say in the news conference recently, like, Lord, please
deliver
me from these big sixes?
Yeah, he did.
A little bit too late for that prayer in his career. He's been doing it for almost 10 years at this point.
But he's an exciting player for everybody, offense and defense.
But the point of this exercise is not the idea that you're going to get a guy and he'll be the exact same guy that he has been. We would have been laughing at Sam Darnold putting up these numbers, right? But they have it, and even Baker Mayfield was cast aside. He was remember, it wasn't just that the Browns dumped him and then he went to the Bucks. He was kind of in no man's land. He went to the Panthers and then he went to the Rams. Like, he's made a couple of stops. Anybody could have had him. and now here he is. He's bounced back, and he's pretty good.
That's
So
crazy.
we can laugh about Daniel Jones. We can laugh about Sam Howell and all these names and Jameis Winston. But what you're trying to hit on is not making a huge financial commitment and saying, you know what, he could be a fit for what we're doing here at the right price. You're giving yourself a shot.
Yeah.
615-737-1025. Matt from Columbia suggests Aaron Rodgers. I think that's a good. Next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vinkin, 1025, 1063, the game.
All right, time to take it to the bank. Just on the other side. And we have so much fun in this segment every week. And it's brought to you by our friends at F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. That's their motto. They do so many great things for business owners out there, families out there who are just trying to make a go of it in this crazy world we live in here. But banking made easy on purpose is a lifestyle, right? That's what F&M Bank tries to do. They want to take some of the burden off of you. They give you tools to simplify things, so you don't not stressing about it as much as we always inevitably are going to do some. But F&M Bank is right in the middle of their communities, 20 locations in our listening area. They've got Springfield covered. They've got Mount Juliet covered. They've got Murfreesboro. They've got West End Avenue in Nashville. They've got 6 locations in Clarksville. So they've got you covered, and they want to be a part of your life and take that burden off you financially. Just ask about all the tools that they've got. Go to myfmbank.com and find the nearest location to you. It's F&M Bank. We're about to take it to the bank and see how we did last week and make more picks for this week. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
D. Mays, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Jake Lyman and Teron Davenport sitting in for Jared Stillman coming up at 2 o'clock. But before Jake and TD take over, it's time to take it to the bank, presented by F&M Bank. Their mission is to make lives better by making banking easier. I don't want to have to do this, but I know that we have to do it. David, let's go over next week, and you can just gloss over my selections. I had a really bad week.
Yeah, Adam, it wasn't the best week for you. So here's what you picked. You picked Nick Folk would go for 3 field goals. He went for 2. You said NWI would get a 30-plus touchdown, at least a 30-yard touchdown. He did not get a touchdown at all. You said Kirk Cousins would throw for 2 touchdown passes. He threw for 2 picks.
He sure did.
Not the best, But also you said Oregon would win by 1 possession. But you said they would at least be by 9 points. They won by 8.
Okay, so give me 1
No,
point.
that's what I was going to say. I'll give you 1 point for
Okay,
that.
I'll
With
take
a total of 77 points.
Okay, I'll take the 1 point this time. That's better than I thought I would do.
Now, D-Mace, you didn't have a great week either.
No.
You said Penn State would win. That did not happen.
Wrong.
You said Georgia would beat Texas. That did happen. You said Baker and Evans would go for 1 touchdown. That didn't happen. Will Levis did not throw for more than 220 yards. I don't think he even hit 200.
No, he didn't.
And he did not get sacked 3 times. He got sacked twice. So you get a total of 3 points, and you're the new leader again with 78 points. Now, Willie, you had a great week. I mean, besides getting Juan Soto to the Mets, you said Army would cover. They covered. You said Georgia would beat Texas. They beat Texas. And you said Chargers would cover against the Chiefs by 4.5 points. Pretty good week for you. You went for a total of 9 points.
9?
9 points.
Was that not a perfect week? Do I not get 10 for getting all of mine right?
All right, now, Bucko.
Why do I get less than that? Wait. I thought this was a scale of 10, right? I got all of mine right, didn't I?
You did, but it's not a scale of 10. I gave you 3 points each, and you had 3 correct answers. So you had 3 points. So you had 9 points. You only had you had.
I think
3
we
picks.
we need next year have a manual of David's scoring rules. I just want to see what the rules are so I can help. I don't feel like I'm getting. I'm not making picks.
Do you remember what Drew Carey used to say about the show Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's the show where everything's made up and the points don't matter.
Yes,
that's what
you got 9 points, okay? With a total of 64 total points.
All right, so
you're coming back into fighting distance of D Mason and Adam, but not that.
What about David? How'd you do?
David did not have a good week either. David, so the only correct answer I had was Jordan James for 2 touchdowns. Shout out Oakland High School alum Jordan James for 2 touchdowns in the Oregon versus Penn State game. NWI did not have a touchdown, and UNLV did not beat Boise State. So yeah.
How many points did you give yourself?
3.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm fair. I'm a fair judge. Okay.
All right.
All I know is I got a perfect week and I got 9 points. D Mace had 25 picks the other day and ended up with like 17 points. I don't think he got a perfect week.
Listen here. He picked the Titans would win. Okay, that right there is a perfect.
But we closed the loophole of Derek making picks and then sub picks within those picks.
I didn't make sub picks.
Not last week. A couple of weeks ago when David gave you 18 points.
Okay, listen, y'all can't fault me for knowing what the loopholes are.
All right.
Exactly.
Well,
and when y'all brought it to everybody's attention,
we closed the loopholes.
And I said, okay.
We closed the loopholes. But
don't
Derek,
make me take away points from you guys.
Derek,
all right, I'll take away points.
Since Derek, you're back in the lead, you can go first.
Okay. Let me see here. The Titans. I'm gonna go with the Titans first. I think Pollard will have over 100 yards rushing. And Chase will have at least Chase and Higgins will have 1 touchdown apiece. Army Navy game. I believe the combined score over under at least 45. So that's it for me.
Okay.
See how easy that was?
Yes. Now that
Thank you.
we're watching you very closely. We're not letting you get one past us this time. All right. All of mine are NFL based, and we'll start with the Titans game. Joe Burrow will throw for at least 250 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Woo.
So both, at least 250 yards, at least 3 passing touchdowns against the Titans on Sunday. Tony,
He's been averaging about 300 a week. So you're 250 or more. I just want to say for the record, David, that is not a high degree of difficulty. 250. He's been doing that.
Well, you're
each
being
week easy.
very like.
I'm bitter. I'm in third place. I'm trying to move up.
I
the stage.
understand.
I'm trying to
I'm trying-
lobby for. I want to win this competition. I'm playing to win. I'm trying to be like D-Mace. I'm trying to find loopholes.
I just want to point out, I believe
250 yards.
it's
Yeah,
been,
I think Tony
okay.
Pollard's going to run for 25 yards.
Okay.
Do I get points if I get that right?
I'll take away your points now, Willie. Come on now.
Joe Burrow.
David's now threatening to take away points.
Joe Burrow has 5 consecutive games with 250 plus passing yards and 3 plus passing touchdowns. So I'm just setting the minimum at that. 250, 3 passing touchdowns. He'll make it 6 in a row against the Titans. I can't wait to hear Willie's reaction to this. Tony Pollard will have at least hold on. I didn't even get it out yet. Tony Pollard will have at least 63 yards rushing because he's 63 yards away from 1,000. So I think Tony
I think that's fair.
I think Tony Pollard will hit 1,000 yards for the season in this game. He needs 63.
They can't stop a nosebleed, the Cincinnati run defense.
Tony Pollard will have at least 63 yards. David can give me however many points he wants for that. Tony Pollard will have at least 63 rushing yards.
Oh my god.
We have a
Willie,
potential,
you just need to like,
we have
chill.
a potential Super Bowl preview this weekend. Lions and Bills. Give me the Bills. Give me the Bills to defeat the Lions this weekend. And a game with some massive AFC playoff implications. Broncos and Colts. Broncos are favored by 4.5. Give me the Broncos at 4.5.
Hold on for a quick second. You know how many yards the Cincinnati Bengals give up rushing? 130.
Ooh.
And he picked 60.
Well, okay,
Seriously?
I said
here's this.
63.
If he does not hit 1,000 yards, he doesn't get any points. For like
It's up
the
to David to
totality.
decide how many points that's worth. Willie, please
Okay.
go ahead. Let me poke holes in all of your picks.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
none of these
I-
picks are precise, I'm not giving him any points.
I'm gonna take Navy +6 against Army. I just think this is gonna be a really fun game. It's gonna go right down to the wire. I just love that Navy's a good team and they're getting 6. Army's had a great year, but I think that's just gonna be a classic Army Navy game that comes right down to the wire. So I like the underdog and the points for Navy. For the NFL, I think this is a game where the Bengals are going to score and the Titans are going to have an opportunity. If they have a great week offensively, they can put up some numbers here. But I just don't like them in sort of a shootout in this game. So I like the Bengals -5 against the Titans. So I'm going there. And I will also say, I really want to make a pick on the Jets-Jaguars game. That you talk about it, 2 miserable teams going head-to-head. The Jaguars beat the Titans last week. Now they get the Jets. Wow. But I'm staying away from it. The team I like, I think the Dolphins are starting to find it a little bit. They got Tyreek Hill back. They've got Tua back. They're starting to get a little more offensive rhythm. I like them -3 against Houston. So I have Dolphins Dolphins +3 at Houston, Navy +6, and the Bengals -5.
All right, those are good selections. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a Memphis type parlay. I think the Memphis Grizzlies will beat the Nets tonight. I think the Memphis Tigers basketball team will beat Clemson on Saturday.
Good
and
game.
I think that the Memphis Tigers football team will beat West Virginia on the 17th. So I'm going to have a Memphis parlay. I'm also thinking Lamar Jackson will go for 4 touchdowns. He has the record for 3 touchdowns a game. I'm going to say he's going to have 4 touchdowns. And NWI will have at least 1 touchdown again because he can't go 2 weeks in a row without getting a touchdown.
Okay.
I really hope Tony Pollard has 99 yards against the Bengals. So I hit it.
You
and
don't get
Derek
extra
doesn't.
points. You don't get extra
I know,
points.
but then
That
Derek
happens.
doesn't get his because he said 100. I said 63.
Oh man.
It's precise. We'll see what David decides next week. If you take it up with the commissioner, the
All
other
problems
commissioner.
come to me.
Yes, come to David. But that'll do it for us this week. Titans and Bengals. Sunday, you can catch Derek and Chris Sanders with Big Joe Dubin on the pregame show starting at 9:30 on Sunday morning from JB Days in downtown Nashville. You can catch Willie on the Predators broadcast, which is being simulcast on Saturday, correct, Willie, on News Channel 5?
It is. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes. So if you do not have access to our broadcasts on your regular methods, you can watch us on Channel 5 on Saturday night. Should be a really fun game. The one thing about the Avs, they are very entertaining. So I think this is going to be a fun game to watch.
So Predators and Avalanche on FanDuel Sports Network as well as News Channel 5. So you can catch Willie there, and we'll catch you all next week, Monday, 11 o'clock. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport coming up next.
Be loved. Love on your people. Have a wonderful, safe, and blessed weekend. Peace.